I'm talking today with Melissa Moss, who is a nutritional therapist, natural medicine practitioner. Yep. Okay, fantastic. And so food is one of your main areas of work?
Yep. So it's food as medicine pretty much. So we're looking at, the body and what sort of nutrients we need to support the body as a whole, and how we can actually improve our overall health through supporting it through nutrients and food as medicine.
Fantastic. And I hope you're liking our outdoor setting here.
It's amazing. It's really, really nice to do an interview like this, actually.
Yeah.
It's lovely and it's nice and relaxed.
Yeah, well, I spoke to Melissa and said, come up and do a talk at the radio, and it's such a beautiful day. I said, come on, we'll go down and do a bit of a talk in nature. So
yeah, beautiful autumn day. It doesn't get much better, does it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And talking about nature, I mean, we get so much of our well-being from nature, and so when people come to you, what would be the number one issue, or what would you look at first?
I guess it's sort of, one of the things that we do is we want to actually ascertain how the body's working as a whole. So look at where we can actually find some imbalances or some areas that might need a little bit of extra support, and how we can actually bring that back into balance. Looking at the diet and what people are actually what the clients actually currently consuming, and how we can improve that and tweak that a little bit in order to support, what goals they have or concerns that they have. I guess as a food as medicine approach to overall health and well-being, we can be looking at supporting someone in any aspect of health. There's always an aspect of nutrition and, improved health and eating that comes into any, health goals or concerns. It's always a key factor. So it's really important for people to, look at trying to get the diet right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that's really overlooked these days. And you hear of people going to the doctors, and not many doctors are actually asking, well, what are you eating, and changing that, whereas some people can have huge benefits from just small shifts in their diet.
Absolutely. And that's what you find. Sometimes it may not be a lot that someone needs to do when it comes to diet and well-being. A lot of people that come and see me for energy, for example, you might find that they're not even eating breakfast, and all you've got to do is implement a healthy, balanced breakfast, and all of a sudden their energy starts to shift and change. So, there's just and that's where as a nutritionist we're looking at a holistic approach as well to overall health and well-being, and how we can actually look at, seeing what they're currently doing and how we can find that shift and move it towards improved health.
Yeah, fantastic. And so what do you think is one of the main, if a problem or a main thing that people can change to improve their diet, do you think? What do you see? I guess processed foods is one.
Yeah, absolutely.
One big one.
One of my biggest, I think, things that I try and promote as much as possible is simply healthy eating. So, as much fresh produce as possible and as much variety as possible. Because when we're looking at, freshness and variety, every colours of the rainbow sort of aspects, because the more colour and the more variety you've got on your plate, the more nutrients you're getting, because each and every one of those nutrients is going into the body to help perform a function. So if we're depriving the body of those nutrients, we're providing the body of being able to function optimally.
Right, yeah. I went to a conference a few weeks ago on the Gold Coast, and they had a doctor visiting from the US, Dr. William J. Walsh. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
No? He's amazing. I think he works with an organisation called BioBalance, and he has a huge reference of blood results, and he can actually go through and look at their blood chemistry and work out that he's found the correlation between different types of mental disorders and the deficiencies of elements and minerals in the blood. I mean, that is amazing. And he talks about how even just increasing the zinc, I think, because often people have low zinc, I believe.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors, I think, that, are becoming more well known now too, with, nutrient deficiencies and stuff like that, where they can cause, from having certain nutrient imbalances, can actually cause major health concerns as such. So, you know, like it might be just from, you know, identifying where our deficiencies are or excesses are, balancing that out, and all of a sudden you start to feel a completely different person.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and that's zinc is one of those that goes for a couple of different factors like that, especially with some neurological factors in that too.
Yes, yeah. Well, that and they were also talking about copper. I couldn't believe how much overload of copper can cause depression and so many different problems.
Yeah, and copper and zinc are two that fight with each other as such for uptake as well. So if we're accessing copper, we're usually deficient in zinc, which is another interesting factor.
Yeah, see, I only learnt this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, gosh, you know, of all, I mean, I have heard little bits and pieces here and there, and sometimes you hear of so many different things. It's hard to know what's really important.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
But when I found out just how important that was a couple of weeks ago, I thought, wow, it's amazing, and that. You know, and what they do with some of those the mental disorders that Dr. Walsh was talking about. They're changing diet, they're supplementing. And do you use supplements at all? Or?
Yep. I use practitioner quality supplements, so they're all really high grade, high quality supplements, which means, you know, I guess, you know, when you're looking at the extraction process and stuff like that, there's, you know, you're getting so much as such bang for your buck. You know, so you got that quality there where, you know, for example, you know, like your fish oils and stuff, they've been, you know, like extracted naturally, cold pressed, that sort of thing. So you're not getting something that's highly, you know, like oxidized as such, which a lot of the cheaper ones are that you can get off the shelf. So, you know, it's about also, you know, with your nutrients, making sure that you do get a good quality nutrient as well to support those functions that need the support.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And so is there any condition in particular that you find people have most benefit with, or I suppose it's so many different things that people...
I think one of the biggest prevalences that I see is digestion.
Right.
One of the things, if we, you know, like I always find, if we don't have our digestion right, then those nutrients aren't getting properly, you know, digested and absorbed into the system to be able to perform the functions that they need to. So I always find, you know, and that's what then leads to those nutrient deficiencies because they're not getting absorbed properly. So, you know, that you end up then with that malnutrition, maldigestion, malabsorption sort of situation. So it's always important to really make sure that we've got a, you know, highly, you know, functional, healthy digestive system.
Absolutely. I'm amazed at a few Mozzies down here.
I know.
I'm not amazed at that, but I'm amazed at, you know, when I go to little gatherings or often meet with friends, there's always usually somebody that has some sort of digestive problem happening. And, you know, with your usual treatments or seeing the doctor, I mean, doctors are great, don't get me wrong, I don't mean to be criticising, and, you know, if anyone breaks a bone, the first person you want to see is a doctor, or if there's a life-threatening situation. But these chronic illnesses that are sort of ongoing, it really requires the person to make their own changes, doesn't it? And to take a little bit of control of their health, because the doctors
accountability as well. I think that's one of the big things that, you know, I really see is that it's all well and good that we have a desire to be healthier and stuff, but we need to take that accountability. And, you know, it's not completely as much as about how we look, but how we feel inside, and that quality of life now and into the future. And that's where, you know, we need to actually, you know, take responsibility and look at a more preventative approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so that we can actually ensure that, you know, we are doing the right thing. And nutrition is a key factor to that. I really believe it.
Now, there's all these different talks about paleo diet, the blood group diet, and have you got any thoughts about those?
I guess, you know, like everyone's individual. So it's about finding what works for you and what makes you feel the best person you possibly can through that food as medicine approach. I'm not against any of them, but I guess it's just working out what's right for someone. My personal belief through, you know, my studies, etc., that I've actually developed is that, you know, it's about eating healthy whole foods as much as possible and getting as much quality nutrients in through your food. Be it whether you do that through paleo, through a blood group diet or whatever, that's all well and good. as long as you're getting those nutrients and that balance in. We don't want to be focusing specifically on one core factor, because that's not going to give us our nutrients to function as much as we need.
I think it comes down to it, the whole foods, doesn't it? It's, if you're eating the whole foods, you're cutting out the sugars, the processed foods, the fats, the
artificial colours, flavours, preservatives, all that sort of thing. So we want to make sure, that we're really focusing on a healthy whole foods diet,
and then
as much
preferably
fruit and
organic,
vegetable, preferably organic where possible, and locally sourced as well as always, much better too. What was I going to say in relation to that? Also really looking at the whole grains as well. If we're going to have grains in our diet, then making sure we choose whole grains, because the white flours, they're not nutritionally supportive. All our fibre and our nutrients are in the husk of the grain, which is what's removed when we actually have a white grain. So if we're going to do the grains, do the whole grains, and make sure that we look at that balance and support as much as possible.
And there's a lot of grains that can be eaten too that aren't, it's not just your usual, your wheat and your rice. I mean, there's all the buckwheat and now how do we pronounce
quinoa?
It? Quinoa, some people say quinoa, quinoa, or all the different.
Very popular, the quinoa now. But it's sort of KEENWA or something like that they say, it's pronounced. Anyway. One of the beauties of the quinoa is that you don't get a lot of vegetable sourced complete proteins, and quinoa is one of those. So even when it comes to vegetarian, we can do vegetarian right, but we just need to make sure that we know what we're doing. Because there's a lot of factors that, like you don't get your complete protein from just having a vegetarian diet. You need to make sure that you combine foods and stuff like that. So it's really important, especially too with your protein, your vitamin B12, also your iron as well. So, there are factors that it's really important to make sure that, whatever diet we do choose, that we know how to do it properly.
And I guess just adding one or two extra things in, if someone's on a particular diet and they don't realise that they're missing something, and that one or two added foods might just give that extra nutrient they're missing.
Exactly. Like when you're looking at something like, like your vitamin Bs are used for your energy production pathway, and so is iron. So, a vegetarian that's lacking in energy, straight away we might be looking at the fact of whether, they're getting enough of that through their food.
Wow, fantastic. And I think this is something that's finally people are realising just how powerful it is. I mean, you look at, generations back where people grew their own vegetables and they had their, Daisy the cow out the back. And I mean, whether the milk's another issue that people debate about, but having that their own meat, their own vegetables, and maybe swapping with other people in the community. And then we've gone to this whole fast food, frozen food thing, but it's like it's all going back to how it was with those whole foods, and everyone realising just how powerful it can be.
Unfortunately not quite quick enough though. I think one of the factors too is just, like where we take that, ownership, I think, too, of educating the younger generation coming up about how much more they can take that responsibility of changing that processed and artificial food back to a natural healthy way of eating.
Absolutely.
And even when it comes to the sugar and how addictive sugar is and stuff like that, we need to look at the younger generation coming through and how we can change that and get them away from the lollies and the processed foods and stuff like that from that young age. But even when you're looking at ingredients and stuff in the shopping list and that sort of thing, there's so many factors when you look at that it's really difficult to find something that hasn't got sugar added to it.
Absolutely. And then you've got the other things that sound good but they're actually really bad. Like I think there's the cornstarch, or is that one's not too good? There's a few. There's quite a few
of them.
And they, they've got a vegetable word in them, so they sound good. But then, quite likely some could be genetically modified. They've had all this processed and.
I've actually got an app that I use. It's called the Chemical Maze.
Okay.
And you can get a free version or you can get a paid version of it too. And you sort of go in and it actually shows you all the processed ingredients and what they mean and how, what they're like as such for you. So, you know, you can go through and see you get a smiley or a sad face and stuff like that. But it's actually, it tells you where it's derived from, whether it's GMO, you know, what negative effects it's going to have.
And do you have to put the numbers in? Is that?
Well, you can do it by word or you can do it by number.
Right.
So you can search by either. And that chemical maze has actually got the food additives, but it's also got cosmetic ingredients as well.
That's another big one, isn't it? Yeah. And I mean, all our household products and fly sprays and all those things. It's the amount of chemicals that we're actually, and that's a lot of, they've been talking about it with autism nowadays, the overload of chemicals that kids are burdened with. And it's the food, the medications, the household ingredients.
And that has such a negative effect on not only on our body and from a young age when we've got that sort of thing, but, you know, not just on our, you know, like I guess, you know, it's our digestive system, our liver, our kidneys, our brain, everything gets affected from the more chemicals we actually, because it all has to be detoxified from the body.
And so are there particular foods you recommend for people when they want to detox?
I've actually just finished myself a detox last Friday. One of my 21-day detoxification programs. I have a program that I do specifically, and it's simply, you know, healthy eating. So it's cutting out all the artificial, the processed, the alcohol, anything that's going to cause an impact on the digestion, the liver, the kidneys, that sort of thing. So it's really just taking it back to a natural diet.
And do you do juicing at all?
Love juices.
You recommend that? Some people say, it's too much at once, and then you hear other really good reports. So, I mean, more good reports than not.
I mean, you know, there is a lot of, I know, media hype out there about the positives and the negatives. I guess, you know, at the end of the day, we're better off having a fresh juice full of flavours and nutrients than a can of Coke. You know?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you know, when you look at that sort of factor, but at the end of the day, the fresh juices, when you've got a fresh juice, you're getting it packed full of those nutrients. So, you know, there's certain aspects that, you know, someone that's finding it hard to digest and stomach things if they're not well, someone that's doing a detox, so they're trying to get as much nutrients in as they can. You know, even, you know, generally in everyday life, if we need that nutrient boost because we're busy and we're not getting a lot of, you know, variety of food into our diet, then a juice is a really, really good option.
Fantastic.
We do, depending on how we juice, we do lose the fibre content. So, I mean, generally it is high in sugar. It is natural sugars, but it is high in sugar. So, you know, depending on what you put in it, so we do have to be a little bit wary of that as well. So, you know, like when we're actually eating the food, so we're getting that fibre content, and that helps process. So your fibre helps the elimination process of the food. So, you know, it's not directly spiking that sort of insulin and stuff like that.
I know people who use some of the pulp and use that in their cooking, making patties. And, you know, I think you have to have the right recipe. I've tried it once and it was a dismal failure.
Me too. I've done exactly the same thing, and I just know, not for me, but I've been wanting to get in and do that again because, even with my nut milks and stuff like that, because I try and make my nut milks and, you know, even the pulp from that as well. It's sort of, I need to start sort of, and again, I tried to make some cookies one day, which were a failure.
Oh no.
Looking at your current diet, looking at how you can improve it, but also looking for the support when you need it. You know, when we can use Dr. Google as much as we can and that sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, you're going to need, you know, it's good to get that added support and know that everyone's individual. They're all different. Our bodies, even though chemical makeup's generally the same, everyone differs in every aspect. So, you know, one thing that might be right for you might not be right for me. And that's why it's really important to actually listen to the body and know, you know, what, and really become aware of how the body's feeling. I always really try and recommend that with my clients as much as possible is, you know, really starting to become aware of what works and how your body responds to different foods and stuff like that, and just general life as well. You know, what increases the stress, what decreases the stress. We want more decreased stress, more increased, you know, happiness.
Joy.
So, you know, that sort of thing. And, you know, foods support that as well. So making sure that, you know, we've got good quality sleep. We've got, I mean, one of those factors too with stress is that I feel that, you know, everyday society generally, and there is much more stress than there ever has been, and much higher expectations on people generally in what they have to achieve in each and every day. And I think that's really increasing that stress level.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, increased stress means decreased other functions, because all our energy, all our nutrients, all our support is going to support those stress levels. And we go into this high fight or flight mode rather than rest and digest, and allowing the body to process everything and detoxify and do what it does properly. And that's a really key factor that I see as well, is just that increase.
I've just got the track back when you what I was going to ask you before, or mention that. It's amazing when you're saying about everybody's different. This Dr. Walsh, he's talking about how one person. Do you know much about the methylation? I'm still a bit confused about that.
It's a big. It's huge.
Yes, it is huge, and a lot of people are learning more about it, and
even trying to say that word. Have you tried to say it?
No.
MTHFR.
I've got another way I say that one. I don't like that one, so I think I might have that one. But that's a gene that affects your
methylation.
And so, but Dr. Walsh has talked about how, if you're an over-methylator or if you're an under-methylator, and one does really well with folate and one does terribly with folate. So that's something, a lot of pregnant women are recommended to have folate, but some people it might actually be really not beneficial to have that. So knowing those differences, like you're saying, everyone's individual, it's actually really important, to see what's actually going on there.
Absolutely.
Each individual.
And just looking at, what, and that's what we sort of look at as a nutritionist in a clinical setting, is looking at, the key factors that are your concern, and, working through how the body is working as a whole, and finding out where those key areas are, so we can start to actually, differentiate with, what might be happening and how we can unpack that and actually get to the core reason of what's going on. And then build on fixing it.
Absolutely. And I think that's what happens far too much these days, is that we're not getting to the bottom of why is this happening. Okay, if there's reflux, instead of taking a
antacid or whatever.
Antacid. What's actually happening? What's the person eating? Are they stressed? Are they rushing their food? Or
because a lot of the time it can be that the antacid's just actually masking the issue. So it's not fixing it in any way, shape or form. It's just masking it. And a lot of things like that will go for a quick fix. Quick fix tablet or something like that is simply masking the concern. And you need to, put a bit more focus on getting to that underlying core reason of why.
Absolutely, and then it sets you up for the rest of, not the rest of your life, but if you can get to the bottom of those problems, then it just ensures a lot more health down the track, rather than keep masking whatever's going on.
And again, you're looking at that quality of life factor, which is a huge factor for me. It's do we want to go down that path of sickness and disease and continue in and out of hospital, or do we want to be fresh and vibrant and full of energy and happy and all that? Because we do have a choice.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. There's just, despite the advances in modern medicine, there's more illness than there's been ever. Like the highest cancer rates, autism rates, autoimmune diseases. And
one of the concerns that I have, looking at the evolution is you look back at sort of my parents' generation and how they ate, and then look at our generation and what we're consuming and what we have since we were children, and what's going to happen when we get to their age now. So when we get into our 60s and 70s and 80s, and what sort of illnesses and diseases and that sort of thing are going to be prevalent. I think it's concerning. And the great thing is that there's a lot more awareness coming, and there's more markets popping up. Like we have our weekly fruit and veggie market, and I think we've just got to build that awareness, don't we? And get the word back. I think
unfortunately people are learning from the mistakes, and they're seeing the way these eating habits are affecting people
negatively, and positively too. Because when you see, like, I mean, my partner and I have just done a 21-day detox, and the amount of people that have commented on him, because I'm usually healthy, but he's not quite that great. But the amount of people that have commented on how amazing he's looking and how good his skin looks and how full of vibrance he looks, because he's given his body that chance to heal a little bit, and that time out, which we all need to do.
And it can happen quite quickly, can't it? It's amazing how much our body can regenerate when we stop putting the crap in or doing any harm, and then nurture, and it can really quickly repair.
So there's so much positivity, when it comes to health, that we need to look at, and sort of steer away from that negativity and really push for a focus on that healthy eating, healthy diet, active lifestyle, and making sure that we nurture it, as you said, and look after ourselves as much as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that's
been great.
Look, like I say, the more we get the word out, and having someone like you where people can, it takes away the confusion, because people think they're having this great diet, but then if they come along to you, that you can have a look and maybe pick up on one or two things that might be missing, and or whatever's best for them. Absolutely. So I practice in Grafton. Mozzies are getting stronger, I think. I practice in Grafton on Wednesdays and Thursdays out of To Be Nourished. Great. So I offer individuals personalised clinical consultations. I also do sort of group workshops and presentations and stuff. And I also work at Farmaloo's on a Thursday for a few hours as well, providing free information and advice, which is really cool.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's a wonderful initiative that they've taken on board. I also then offer mobile in-home consultations in the Lower Clarence, so Maclean, Yamba, Aluka, that sort of thing, outside of work hours too. So it just gives a bit of flexibility to people as well. And so do you have a website at all? Yes, I do. You can share that with www.nvnutrition.com.au. So jump on board, have a look. There's some recipe ideas. My Facebook page as well, Natural Vitality Nutrition. It has a lot of recipe ideas and different information and stuff like that as well. I'm always trying to, look at developing and keep abreast as much as possible about what's going on out there, and, continue to try and improve and that sort of thing. Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's so important, because there's always new things being discovered. There's a lot of scientific research going on, so that's fantastic to be open to keeping up to date with whatever's going on. Yeah, absolutely. But I love what I do. I love helping people. It's amazing, since being a nutritionist, how rewarding I've found it. Actually, seeing people change and seeing how, not only them but their families have changed as well, based around, advice and information that I've given them, and, seeing, a whole new person come out of it. It's really exciting. Great. And do you want to share your phone number? Yes, my phone number, if anyone wants to contact me, is 0400 06 9955. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you, Melissa Moss. Yes. And Melissa's a nutritional therapist. Yep. Is that the official Nutritionist, nutritional therapist? It's all fantastic. Thanks so much for joining me, Melissa. Thanks so much, Di. I know I can.